O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. Car ton bras se porte l'épée, il se porte la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillant exploit. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Joel. That was wonderfully done as always.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items?
Thank you, none this evening.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for confirmation of the agenda. Councillor Main, Councillor Bodnar, thank you. Are there any disclosures of interest? Seeing none, I need a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes regular meeting of Committee of the Whole, 05-16, held on March the 14th, 2016. Mover, Councillor Main, seconder, Councillor Elliott. Thank you. Items requiring separate discussion. I'll start on my right. Councillor Main.
Number 1, number 15, and number 20.
Thank you. Councillor Butters.
Mine have been lifted, thank you.
Thank you. On my left. Any items, councillors? Councillor Bodnar.
Item 2 and item 3.
Thank you. Any other items, councillors? Thank you. I'm now going to move to the podium to make some grant application presentations. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This evening, as part of our meeting, we will be presenting several community grants to non-profit organizations who serve the residents of Port Colborne. You may remember that this was done by Port Colborne Hydro for many years, and when we sold hydro, we continued with the fiber. We've recently, as you know, last year sold fiber, but in council's good wisdom, they decided to keep the initial investment that we put into fiber separate, and that will stay until the money runs out. But that initial investment of $750,000, that's what it was, has stayed in that separate account to continue to review the applications from community groups. There are 3 members of council on this. Myself, Councillor Angie Desmarais, who can't be with us tonight, she had a death in the family. Mayor John Maloney, and as you know, he is recovering and is doing very well, but not able to attend this evening. And the 2 members of the public are Gary Bruno and Brenda Haynes. So for this year, for 2016, council set aside a maximum of $40,000 to be distributed. And the first round of applications were received on January 31st, and we are here this evening to present 5 grants totaling $12,600. Now, the next round of applications must be submitted by June 30th of this year. So the information is available on our website, and it's important if you're looking for some grant money that you get that application filled in. The first check this evening goes to the Niagara Antique Power Association, and they will use their $3,600 grant to furnish sanitary modern washroom units that can be used for all visitors attending the Antique Power Show on the Canada Day weekend. I'd like to call up Barb Middlestead. You want to say a few words?
Sure.
Sure you will. Thanks.
I'd like to thank the council. I'd like to thank the city of Port Colborne and Bee, of course, who's always been a big supporter of Niagara Antique Power. We hope you all will attend our show on Canada Day weekend, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We have some free passes for you guys. If you would like to come, just let us know and we'll get them to you. This grant is just going to help us stay ahead of what's coming with health guidelines, because our washrooms are just not going to be approved. And if they're not, we might have to shut our show down because we can't afford to rent them. So we really appreciate this. It'll really help us stay open and help our heritage for farming in the Niagara area keep going. Thank you.
And if you have not been out there, you're missing something. You need to make sure part of your Canada Day is spent there. The next check is for $2,000, and it's going to the Port Colborne and District Conservation Club, and their grant is going to be used to renovate and improve the hatchery tank and include installation of a battery backup system. And Kathy McGuire, I believe, is here today.
I'd like to thank everybody for the generous donation towards our hatchery. If anybody is interested in seeing our hatchery, it can be open to the public. What we do is, with help of the ministry, in the Grand, once the pickerel start to run, the ministry actually brings their big boat down. They shock the pickerel. They float to up to the surface. They put them in pens. They make sure that the eggs are ripe and the sperm is ripe. And we take the eggs and fertilize them, and then we put them in great big jars in our hatchery, which is located at our site out on 2nd Concession. They're watched like every couple hours. There's somebody there keeping an eye on it. Last year we had trouble. We had a power surge, and then the power went out. So our fry were without power for a couple hours. Fortunately, we caught it in time. We didn't lose them. We saved them, and we put over 10,000 little fingerling pickerels in the Welland River in the spring last year. So with this backup system, even though we're still going to be there and it's constant watching, this will help prevent that from happening. Plus, our tanks are getting quite old as well, so we're going to replace those and modernize it and make this, an annual event that will hopefully go on forever and ever. With our 444, there is a lot of fish that are taken out of Lake Erie. It's part of it, but this is our way of giving back. And it's open. We're out there all the time. We'll be collecting the eggs in another couple weeks, and then the hatch will be up and running. So if anybody would like to go and see that, just contact me, and I would be happy to give you a tour of it. It is quite interesting. So again, thank you so much.
The next check is going to the Port Colborne Operatic Society. They will use their grant of $1,500 to pay for live musicians program for students. These professional musicians accompanied the students in the orchestra pit of this year's performance of Mary Poppins. And if you missed that, you missed a show. I'm telling you. Anyways, I'd like to invite 2 members of the Operatic Society up here to accept the check. Jack McDowell. This says Jack. Yeah. I know that's David. There you go. One of you, 2 of you, both of you.
Thank you, City Council and the City of Port Colborne for all your support. We enjoy putting these shows on. Next year will be our 72nd year of bringing Broadway home to Port Colborne, and we just love doing these shows. This year's show was a big success of Mary Poppins, and next year we're doing My Fair Lady, and we'd like to see some of you come out and try a little tango or something. It's been great being here. We love being here. It's a great city, and thank you for all your support.
The next check is for Women's Place of South Niagara, and they will use their grant of $2,000 to provide safe emergency shelter for women and their children escaping domestic violence. And I'd like to welcome up Stephanie Thompson to come forward.
Thank you so much. Madam Deputy Mayor and City Council, on behalf of Women's Place, I thank you so much for this. Women's Place is very appreciative of your support, and we will use this to help women and children in abusive situations. Thank you.
And our final check for this evening is to YMCA of Niagara, and their grant of $4,000 is to operate the Youth Action Program. This program is currently held at DeWitt Carter School on Wednesday night, and it's for youth between the ages of 9 and 14. And it's just a place for them to come and drop in. So if you know any youth and with those age brackets, come and send them over to DeWitt Carter School on Wednesday night and see what it's all about. And I'm now going to invite Aaron Grable to come up and say a few words.
On behalf of the YMCA, thank you for your continued support of the Youth Action Program. Last year we had 32 individual youth come to DeWitt Carter for 242 total visits. So thanks to your support, this is a free program focused on physical activity. So it's every Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. So thank you very much.
And that's the great thing about having this little stash, I was called a little stash of money, so it can continue on for many years to support local programs. And they're all very worthy. You've heard their, and I just thank all of you for coming tonight and supporting this as well. Thank you. Thank you. We now have a delegation here this evening. You'll remember I told you they came to the mayor's office a couple weeks back and spoke about their business, I guess we call it a business, coming into Port Colborne. And I'd like to invite Bob Romeo and Laura Hills forward to give their presentation. Laura is the President and Chief Executive Officer, and Bob is Director of Marketing for Goodwill Niagara. Thank you.
Okay, I'll get this yet. Good evening, everybody. And Deputy Mayor Kenny and members of council, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting us tonight to speak at your meeting. I'm Laura Hills, and I'm the CEO of Goodwill Niagara. With me tonight is Bob Romeo. He's the Director of Marketing. We're here to tell you a little bit about Goodwill Niagara and to make a special announcement to the City of Port Colborne. Goodwills are autonomous organizations with local management and boards made up of community leaders. Goodwill Niagara began in April 1994 with 1 store in St. Catharines and 12 employees. Currently, we have 5 stores located throughout Niagara, and we employ over 110 people. When people shop or donate, the revenue generated at the donation centers goes right back into the Niagara community. People in Niagara benefit from your generosity, and lives begin to change throughout the region. Last year, Goodwill Niagara kept over 6 million pounds of usable items out of the landfills. The services provided have expanded over the years to include affordable housing for seniors in St. Catharines and Welland. Goodwill Niagara is proud of the 22 years that we've been helping to strengthen families and neighborhoods in Niagara. Now I'm going to ask Bob Romeo just to talk a little bit about some of the programs that we're running.
Thanks, Laura. The revenues, we talked about this, some people may know this. Revenues from the sales of donations at Goodwill Niagara go back into the community to create jobs, training programs, and affordable senior housing in Niagara. Laura touched a little bit on that. Some of the programs that we offer in the community, we have a job training and assistance for people with disabilities and other barriers to employment. We also have a program which has been running for quite some time, very successful, Constructing Our Future, which provides skilled training in the construction industry to youth at risk. And this program is funded by Service Canada Skills Link. We also have a culinary program. Participants learn skills about the career of food service industry, and that program is funded in part by Ontario Works. Also, Successfully Suited. This is a program that a lot of people don't know we have, but this is to people in the public. The program is for people who are maybe looking for a job, might not have the proper attire that they would need to land that next job. They can then come to us. They can be referred to us through the program, and if they bring in a current resume, we will then give them an outfit to go and land that job. Also, we have General Assistance, which offers assistance to families who require emergency items, such as a house fire, floods, different tragedies. They are usually referred to us. A lot of people are referred through the women's shelters and different homeless organizations. Last year, Goodwill Niagara provided assistance to over 400 people in need in the Niagara region. Goodwill also helps provide services and training to over 1,000 people in Niagara. If you'd like to find out more, you can follow us on Twitter. We're on Facebook as well, or go to our website, which is www.goodwillniagara.com.
Thanks, Bob. Now I'm pleased to let you know the good news that we have tonight. Goodwill is finally coming to the city of Port Colborne, and we are so excited about our new store. It's going to be a donation center and training center and a store, and it's located at 45 West Side Road. I always want to say West Mall Road, and I know that's not right. We'll be opening the 9,000 square foot store donation center, and it's at the former location of Staples. We have already hired 6 people for this location, and we will be hiring 12 to 14 more in the next couple of weeks. I don't have an opening date yet, but we anticipate that it will happen in early May. We're so excited to come to this amazing city. I love Port Colborne, and it's the first time we've had an expansion into another city in probably close to 10 years since we opened our Welland store. We look forward to having a positive impact on families and neighborhoods around Port Colborne. If anybody has any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Councillor Butters?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I have a question for you. Sure. I belong to another group that's, we have a spring yard sale, and we're always looking to, for what we have, get pretty good stuff, and then what we have left over, we try to shift to somebody else. Will you be accepting donations in April or not till May?
I'll leave you my card, and we
that'd
can
be
make
wonderful.
arrangements.
Okay, great.
We have people working on site now. They're trying to, they're setting up the store, and we're getting, I've heard 3 to 5 more transport trailers, loads of equipment and clothing and household items into that location next week.
Okay.
So
perfect, thank you.
I'll give you my card.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for coming.
You.
And it was great having you, and thank you for bringing that good news to the city of Port Colborne.
We're happy. We're so excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks. Now, councillors, in my earnest effort to get the money handed out, I neglected to ask for a mover and a seconder for the items not requiring separate discussion. Mover, Councillor Elliott, and seconder, Councillor Bodnar. Thank you. I have a long mayor's report, sorry, but anyways, let's just start off to telling you, like I said at the podium earlier, that Mayor Maloney is progressing very well. He was home for the weekend on Easter with his family and his rehabilitation. We hope to have him back here very soon. Last week saw the opening of the Welland Canal, and we welcomed Captain Josh Penny, was welcomed by Deputy Mayor B. Kenny, see, Penny, that was great, Chief Engineer Gerald Flynn of the Tug and Barge Victorious, and John J. Carrick into Lock 8 for our annual Top Hat ceremony. Their vessel is owned by Mick Asphalt Marine Transportation Limited and was heading to Hamilton. I want to take the time to thank our Fair Trade Committee members, Jane Nye, Nancy Salvage, Rosemary Armstrong, and Lisa Bowers for putting on an excellent fair trade pancake breakfast. And a special thanks goes out to Bremfield's, Smoking Buddha, Bodner's, Agate Valley, ADM Milling, and 10,000 Villages for their support with this breakfast. Over 100 people attended on that chilly morning, and it was chilly. And if you missed the breakfast this year, they actually plan to do the same thing next year. Also, thanks to the St. James St. Brendan Anglican Church for their service the evening before. It was a great Mariners service, and our thoughts and prayers, of course, are for all the sailors and their families as they head into the 2016 season. On Monday, March 21st, we held a special meeting of council concerning the wastewater budget. There will be an average annual increase of $35 per household, or $8.75 per quarter, which is a 2.58% increase. The report can be found on our website and was passed by council with some funds coming from reserves to cover the major work currently being completed around the city, namely the Lakeshore Road water main, replacement of frozen services, and water meter replacements. The new west side bulk water station, start of Elm Street water main, and the storm sewer outlet. I do want to point out that there is a second report with a fixed charge for storm sewer drainage fees for future new and replacement of storm sewers in the urban area. The report calls for a couple of public meetings over the next 6 months. We really would appreciate your input. So please go to our website, read the report, and make sure you come out to the public meetings and give us your thoughts. Council received this report on the 21st for information purposes only, but there are no proposed changes to this if it is passed, even if it is passed by council until 2017. We also have had reports from residents who have contacted us about door-to-door water filtration marketers who have been visiting homes in Port Colborne and asking people if they could check their water shutoffs and water meters and trying to sell them filters. This was very concerning to some residents, especially with us just having Neptune go in and replace meters, and then this company coming along and they were actually implying to the residents that Health Canada required these filters, and also implying that the city's drinking water was somehow compromised. Not too happy about that, but we've notified the police, and we did want to reassure the residents that the water delivered to their homes meets or exceeds strict provincial guidelines and is quite safe to drink. Residents concerned about the safety of their water are asked to contact Public Works Department at 905-835-5079. There are no, let me repeat, there are no city staff going door to door presently. However, Neptune Technology is the only company going forward, and that is from us, to replace your water meter. And they're wearing Neptune uniforms and carry a Neptune ID and will have a Neptune placard on their vehicle. Neither the city or its contractor is selling or installing filters, nor is it mandated by Health Canada that the residents must have these. There was also a further complaint, door-to-door salesman again, wanting to inspect furnaces and hot water tanks and telling residents that theirs is obsolete and needs replacement. Should any resident feel uncomfortable with door-to-door marketers' sales approach, they should contact the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services, The city cannot contact the ministry to complain on a resident's behalf. The resident that was approached by the company must make that complaint before the ministry will investigate. It is very important to remember, residents, that you do not have to allow a salesperson to enter into your home, nor should you, unless you are confident that their credentials and intentions of the person at your door are valid. Should you have any apprehension or suspicion or uneasy feelings, it's best that you do not let them into your house and ask them to leave the property. This past week, there was also the Southern Tier Mayor's Luncheon, which is hosted here in the city of Port Colborne, and it was well attended by many, and it provided individuals, business leaders, an opportunity to know what was happening in all the different communities in the Southern Niagara as a whole. And I'd like to also take the opportunity to thank the Port Colborne Fire Department and employees at Sobeys for the great food drive and barbecue that held over the Easter weekend to support the Port Cares Reach Out Center. On Thursday and Saturday, they raised $4,400 and filled 2 trucks full of food donations. So thank you, anyone who was in the area who made that donation, because it really supported a worthy cause. And last week also, we had the federal budget was announced, and council will be working with our directors to ensure that the city of Port Colborne applies for any new funding under the programs that have become available. We will take a bit of time for the details of these programs to be announced. However, we plan to be ready and apply with the assistance of our MP, Mr. Badaway, for the benefit of these funds. And then on March 24th, it was my first regional council meeting after being appointed by my council here. And I had a nice friendly face, sits right across the chamber from me, and that was Councillor Barrett. And he gave me a nice warm welcome, as well as the chair. It was quite an interesting discussion that evening, very lively, but it closes at the magic hour of 11, not 1 second after, because they changed their bylaw last year, I believe, because they were going into the 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning meetings. And so at 11 o'clock, the chair taps the gavel and says, "We're done." And that ends it. And actually, there were 2 items that never even made the agenda because we ran out of time. So there was lots of conversations going, but I thoroughly enjoyed it and was honored that I had the opportunity to represent all of you at that meeting. Thank you. Now we will hear from our regional councillor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I'll pick up where you left off. Recognizing that you attended the Regional Council meeting on March 24th, and I want to say to this audience as well that certainly I'm happy to have you across the aisle while Mayor Maloney is under recovery, and certainly you're one that does your homework and is passionate and never afraid to be vocal, and I personally look forward to working with you more closely, similar to like we did in the 2006-2010 term. So I have a couple of brief updates as well from a regional councillor perspective. One of them is that the province is currently looking at options for revenue tools, which is always a healthy discussion, but I'd say that too often governments believe more money is the solution, and some people would rather look at the revenue side before the spending side. With the region posting a 0% property tax hike, in my view, shows prudent fiscal management while making strategic investments and in social services and critical infrastructure, and certainly they're not mutually exclusive. It was in that vein on February 25th, in a unanimous vote, that Regional Council supported my request by passing a motion telling the province that it does not support the implementation of a vehicle registration tax in Niagara. I do believe that correspondence was received by this council at your last meeting. Today, I understand in your package as well, there is additional correspondence related to the Niagara Central Airport Commission. I would humbly ask that you don't simply receive it, but rather support and endorse that request from Richard Rebiak, Chair of Niagara Central Airport Commission, requesting the Niagara region to commit matching funds up to $99,000 in support of the airport application for funding under the Canada 150 Community Infrastructure Program. And I know Deputy Mayor also sits on the commission, and I welcome her voice at the regional council table for us to try to get regional dollars for some of those needed capital programs. And certainly this council's voice will be a great contribution to getting the support at the regional council table. I'd also like to share that I am honored to have received the confidence of Regional Council to continue on as Niagara Region Budget Chair by affirmative vote for the next 2 budget cycles, and I'd like to congratulate Vice Chair April Jeffs for being reappointed as well. I look forward to working with her, Budget Committee, and staff with a continued focus on taxpayer affordability and value for money. And following the value for money theme, the region is looking at over the next 18 to 24 months, exploring and implementing the option of collective procurement around insurance programs with area municipalities. And so if the city has not been made aware, they will be in touch very soon, I'm sure, to hopefully look at least exploring the option of collective procurement to get better value for money for all our taxpayers. And finally, I'll leave it at the nomination for T. Roy Adams Humanitarian of the Year Award is open until March 31st. That eligibility includes being a resident of Niagara, evidence that the spirit of volunteerism and community service plays an integral part of an individual's life, and a person whose community service has involved the citizens of Niagara. That application can be found on the region's website as well. That's my report, Deputy Mayor. I'm happy to take any questions.
Through Deputy Mayor to Regional Councillor Barrett. What is the process to have the gentleman involved in the 2042 Moving West strategy from the region? I know he's doing a presentation in Wainfleet tonight, which I was going to go to, but I can't be in 2 places at the same time. Would he also come before this council and do the same presentation?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, yes. So the Commissioner of Planning has been directed by Regional Council to visit every single local municipality. And I can find out what the schedule is. Perhaps your clerk knows, it looks like. But yes, the Commissioner is slated to make presentations to every local council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dan, you have an answer for that? Thanks.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, it's April the 11th. There'll be a presentation from Regional Planning to Council.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, David. Thanks. The next is councillors' items. Councillors? This end? Councillor May?
I have a whole sheet.
Okay.
So having said that, I have some concerns also about the door-to-door peddlers, and I think the simple solution would be, and I don't know if it's possible, is to license door-to-door peddlers in the city of Port Colborne. At least we would have a bite on these people to make sure what they're doing is legit. What they're doing isn't, sticking their foot in the door and intimidating people. I don't know, I guess I'd have to talk to Dan about that with the bylaw. Is that possible that we could license peddlers?
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Main, that's something that the Clerk's Department deals with. We have a licensing bylaw. It's all governed under the Municipal Act, and I would have the clerk provide a response to council on that.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That's correct. We do have a business licensing bylaw, and with Council's direction, we can take a look at reviewing the provisions with regard to licensing door-to-door salesmen and report back to Council on whether that would qualify or if we'd need to make an amendment to our bylaw. Sure, if you want to do that.
So you want to make that motion?
I would definitely like to make that a motion.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Butters. Okay, now you can continue. Thank you.
But Girl Guides are exempt. That has to be in the bylaw as well. Yes, Deputy Mayor. Oh,
All in favor? Staff direction for report from the clerk's office in regard to licensing of sales. You have a question for that? Okay, okay.
So in that report, I think we looked at this some time ago. I think maybe when I sat in another chair over there. But will there be in that bylaw, or the report you're going to bring forward, will it be the fine amount? And the reason I say that was when we looked at it before, I'm pretty sure, because a lot of these places do a hit and run, you know, they'll come in, blitz a community, you know, do an afternoon here or a day here, and by the time anybody finds out they're even around, they're gone, you know. So legit people will get a license, but the hit and run guys will just come in and blitz it and then they'd be gone. So I think when we looked at it, they figured that the cost of a fine was the cost of doing business. So if they got caught, but I just like to have a pretty thorough report that lists all that. Because I know there's people that come in and do that in an afternoon and then they're gone, so.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Elliott?
A couple questions and comments. First question, what types of business do we license right now? I know that we license garages for car repairs. What else do we license?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We license refreshment vehicles, that's correct, garages. I'm trying to think of what else we license.
Kennels?
Yeah, we do license kennels. Forgive me. Hawkers and peddlers, it's a very broad type of licensing. So refreshment vehicles that move from place to place and sell goods. So it could be foods or selling merchandise. Typically, though, it's out of some type of a vehicle. Also, you'll see fry trucks throughout the city as well. Those are the type of businesses that we license at this time.
So we don't license basically, I'll say 99% of the businesses in town. You can open a commercial retail store and you don't need a business license to operate.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, no. Certain retail businesses, ones that are, for example, businesses downtown, are licensed, they're permitted through the province of Ontario. The municipality does not have any licensing in place for those type of retail establishments. We also do not license restaurants. There's a number of business types that we do not license. However, council can give direction to staff to take a look at the scope of our business licensing bylaw, and we can review some other types of businesses that maybe council would be interested in licensing, and staff would prepare a report on that. There is a public meeting that needs to take place and public notice that is required for amending our business licensing bylaw. And if I may, I'd like to respond to Councillor Bodner's question or inquiry about fines. Currently, our business licensing bylaw does not capture fines. It's really on a complaint basis, and when we receive a complaint or it comes to our attention, we'll go out with bylaw enforcement and seek compliance, voluntary compliance, but there's no provision for fines at this point in time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, for that. That actually speaks to a question I was going to ask, because I know that these people, these door-to-doors, are fly-by-nights, and it's tough to catch them, and that's the thing. If we're going to impose a bylaw and have them register as businesses, the enforcement's the tough thing. And how much time and staff time do we spend on trying to catch somebody? That's extremely hard to do. And I know that there's people that they knock on the doors of and they harass them and pester them, and I've seen it in action on my doorstep. So I know what's out there. I'm just, by the time the complaint comes in and it gets activated at City Hall, they're gone. How do you get out and enforce it? And I mean, if they want to register and license themselves and pay the $50 or $100 or whatever you're going to charge them, you know, like Ron said, it's cost of doing business. Here's my $100. I'll go about my business. Now I'm a legal business. You know, how are we going to draft up a bylaw that says, what are you doing? He said, she said, you told them at the front door. I mean, that's where it gets confusing. So to try to keep somebody like these people under control where it happens in many municipalities, I think it's would be costly for staff time to try to catch them than it would be to inflict any monetary penalty. And even if we did, would they even pay? So that's, you know, I know why we're looking at it and we're considering it, but I just think in the long run, to me, it would be a waste of time to go through with this. That's my opinion, but if we're going to get a report, we can talk about that later on.
Thank you. Councillor Bodnar, you had another comment?
Just one more. Can we also in that report, because I'm not sure whether I'll vote at the end for it, but in that report, can we see how other communities deal with it and what their success rate is? Because like Dave said, if there's zero success rate, then it might not be worth it. But if you could find that out, Madam Clerk, that'd be great.
Councillor May?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a quick point. We were talking about businesses being licensed. The big difference here is if I go to a business, I'm going there on my own free will to buy something. When a guy comes to my door to sell me stuff, if he's pushy, he's coming to me to buy something. So that's a big difference in the whole scenario. Do we have to make money on fines? If I see Joe Schmo coming up, he's going to sell cigarette lighters or whatever, show me that license that you paid for from the city that gives you the privilege to come up and knock on my door and ask me if I want to buy that license. You don't have that. Hit the road. There's so many people, and we went through this with Mr. Applegate 2 weeks ago. You know, there's 27 or 28% of this community are 60 years of age or over. Now, I know my mother-in-law got caught up in a few things where they come and knock on the door, they give you the whole spiel, you get caught, you get stung, they walk away. They contribute not one penny to the community, and they're gone. So even if they bought a license, they came to my door, they showed me the license, Ashley's got a sign with her name on there that she got from the clerk or whatever, I kind of think that makes a big difference. I don't know how many times we hear about it, I don't know how many times I check this out, and you hear of these high-pressure guys that come to the door, knock on the door, put their foot in the door so you can't close it, and you're stuck with it. And any way we can get rid of them or discourage them, I'd vote for a bylaw like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? Is that okay? Okay, the motion on the floor then, moved by Councillor Main and seconded by Councillor Butters, is that we have a report, a staff report regarding this. All in favor of having a staff report? Opposed? No? Okay, all in favor. That was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Moving right along, this question's for Harry. Last council meeting, I asked about the boat ramp, and I thought someone was going to get back to me, and I didn't get a lot of information. Now, this weekend, other than yesterday, was not a very good weekend for fishing, but there was Saturday was beautiful, Friday was beautiful. We've got all these cars and trucks with trailers, and there's no place for them to pay, and the docks aren't in yet. There's no ice in the lake, and I would think that that would be a priority with the marina. Seeing we have two staffs there the whole winter, I don't think we should have to wait for the docks at the boat ramp. Could you update me on any progress there, please?
Through Deputy Mayor Kenny to Councillor Main. As I understand, I think, and I'll double check this to be certain. I know Chris LaRock may have communicated, but I'll double check in fairness to your response, your question. The second thing is that they're working on the docks. They're getting materials to replace some of the dock boards, and there's quite a bit of work that has to be done to get those docks ready and put into place. And we just brought in the support staff that are the deckhands, for lack of a better term, to come in and start putting those docks in. As to a drop-dead date, I believe they're staying within the seasonal operational model that they have, which is coming up within the next week or two. But I can certainly get back to Chris and or Mark and certainly get a definitive date as to when they can have those docks ready and in the water. As far as when the launch ramp will be ready with regard to the pay display, or sorry, pay and launch display ticket, I know we just had a meeting with the bylaw officer, Mark did, to iron out some of the changes that are going on there as far as enforcement and upkeep. And I will definitely get back to you with an answer perhaps as early as tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Harry. It's just a thorn in my side that this is the perfect year. The marina made money last year, and every day we let slip is less money we can make for next year. I'd like to see this place totally self-sufficient. We're almost getting there, and time is money. Thank you, Acting Mayor. This also, it could also be, Peter might be able to answer me this one. Seeing that we waited a couple of weeks before we officially passed the budget, you know, as bored as I am with life, I had a chance to read it over a couple more times. And I was concerned again about the marina, the business plan for the marina store. I don't see one. When you run a business like the store, you buy inventory. You buy inventory at a wholesale price. The markup on that inventory should cover your wages. It should cover the U-bills. It should cover enough for inventory advancement for next year, and you should show a slight profit if the store is going to be successful. It's got to the point where, okay, if it's convenient for the boater, okay, that's fine. That's the excuse we're given here about being a convenience, a demand from the boater. But it's not a demand for the boater convenience if we're not going to make any money on it. We shouldn't be losing money on a store when we should be making money on the store. I know it was only opened, it's only got 1 year under its belt, but I would definitely like to see a business plan for the marina store. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other inquiries? Councillor Bodnar and then Councillor Elliott. Thank you.
I think I'd just like to pick up on one that Councillor Main said about the boat launch ramp. And I think I agree with Councillor Main. Can we get something in place that, because it'll happen other years. Last year was, you know, a lot of ice. We weren't going to do anything early. But next year could be the same thing. It could be a mild winter and we could have a chance to open a few weeks early. How can we put something in place that somebody makes that decision in end of January or something like that? It may mean bringing some people in early, but if it looks like a season where we can grab, you know, a few weeks of possible revenue, and it's not just the revenue, it's a convenience to the people that use that facility all summer. So maybe at some point, Harry, you could come forward with some thought process on what happens if we need to react, you know, sooner rather than the set date every year, no matter whether it's a hard winter or not. So I'd just like to see that somewhere in the works so that we wouldn't have this conversation on another year when it's really too late to have the conversation. Thanks.
Councillor Elliott? Oh, you want to respond?
Just to, through you, Deputy Mayor Kenny, to Councillor Bodnar, I think there's some budgetary restrictions to that. Obviously, we're going with sort of the model that has been in place as far as establishing a seasonal priority for marinas. That is how they operate by the season. It's not reactionary necessarily. I was in several other communities where the marinas haven't been opened yet because of similar circumstances, although the weather has been fabulous in some cases. Still cold down around the lake sometimes when those winds pick up. But in fairness, that's a contingency idea that does have some merit that we could probably look at and maybe build a contingency budget in place for those circumstances that might help in the future. So that's something that we would have to consider because it would require additional staffing to bring in equipment, machinery, and then, you know, if it's a mild winter, obviously getting the equipment out. It's not just a matter of the two staff there. There are other hands on deck, and from a health and safety standpoint, having people on hand to handle heavy equipment and machinery in place is also a consideration that we have to have. So it is something we'll put a contingency plan together perhaps and make presentation for future budgets.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Mr. Hanson. Two questions for Ron. One, I got several complaints from the area on King Street, just south of St. Patrick's Church. There was a water service repair done. Cold patch has been placed on the cut in the road. The complaint is with the trucks running down to the elevator in the mill when they go over the cut. I'm sure that it shakes the trucks because that's what they're complaining about, but it also suggests to them that it's shaking the houses. And I don't know if it's because of the cut in the road. The question was, when will we get into finally repair that? I'm assuming that we're going to do that with our roads paving budget.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Originally, we were given the information about 3 weeks ago that the asphalt plants were going to open April the 4th. Unfortunately, we've received information last Friday that the plants aren't opening till April the 18th. So we had our contractor in last week to discuss the trenches with them. They're ready to go. We don't have asphalt yet, so we're not going to do any of the permanent repairs, including the concrete curbs, sidewalks, and the landscaping until a later date. So first priority is to get the trenches reinstated. We have our contractor on board, Circle B, from last year. We have them on a multi-year contract. They're ready to go, so we're just waiting till the 18th now to get the trenches reinstated.
Just to follow up that with paving as well too. Now the budget's going to finally pass tonight. Have we allocated our paving budget, roads budget, to any streets? Or are you still looking for? Are we looking for suggestions on areas that could use it?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. We always want to get suggestions from members of council. Any priority items that they see, complaints they're getting from the constituents, we'd be happy to take a look at those and put those on our list for consideration. The only definite repaving job for 2016 is Lakeshore Road West. We've committed the OCIF funds that we get each year, and those are, as stated in the budget, the OCIF funds, it's approximately $100,000 go towards the roads resurfacing budget, and we've committed that to Lakeshore Road West this year. So as soon as the water main work's done, we'll be reinstating or repaving the road right from the Lakeshore Bridge to Cement Road.
Any other questions of staff? Seeing none. Staff, do you have any responses to previous councillors' inquiries? Thank you. Seeing none. Now we'll move to considerations of items requiring separate discussion. And the first one would be number 1, and that would be Councillor Main.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Planning and Development Report number 2016-40, subject revised recommendation report for a proposed zoning bylaw amendment, file number D14-13-14, 485 Northern Avenue.
Councillor Main, go ahead.
Yes. Here's my concern with the way this is written, especially the part where it's 10 one-bedroom apartments and 10 bachelor apartments. Well, I know that Mr. Veneri took the rooming house designation off the last meeting that we had. And so when you say a bachelor apartment, I would like to see it written, if this goes that far, that here's what a studio apartment is, which is equivalent to a bachelor apartment. I Googled this a little while ago. Define studio apartments: a small apartment that has a main room, a small kitchen, and a bathroom. Now, the other one where it's a single apartment, everything is in one room, kitchenette, your bedroom, which is quite similar to what you get at Portal Village, and a bathroom. Now, when I took the tour of Northland Manor, in that whole section, there was only a couple of bathrooms for 6 or 7 places. Now, if this zoning goes through and the building starts, I would think that we would have bathrooms in every single room. Am I correct in saying that, or am I incorrect?
Mr. Aquilina, would you like to answer that, please?
Definitely, Mr. Acting Mayor. Our zoning bylaw actually defines what a bachelor apartment unit is. It's a minimum of 40 square meters. There's also a minimum floor area for a 1-bedroom apartment, for a 2-bedroom apartment. And under the bylaw, each unit requires cooking and bathroom facilities within that actual unit.
So, excuse me, I'm sorry, through you, Acting Mayor, to Mr. Aquilino. So then it would be self-contained?
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Councillor Butters, you wanted to speak on that?
Yes, I had a couple of questions. And I don't know that Mr. Aquilina can answer them, but if Mr. Veneri's here, maybe he can. I just wonder if this goes through, how soon will these changes happen? And I also would like to know what happens to the present tenants.
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Butters. If Council approves the zoning change this evening, and I've talked to Mr. Veneri, I'm going to give him a short amount of time to have the residents that are lodging in there to vacate the property. That being said, under the Landlord-Tenant Act, it's got to be a couple months, but as long as we see progress that the residents are moving out, making contact with the local agencies to help out those individuals, it really is something that Mr. Veneri's got to ensure happens, especially for the current residents that are in there right now.
Councillor?
So is that a 2-month process? Is that what you're kind of telling me? It's a 2-month process, or 3 months, or?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Butters, I've indicated to Mr. Veneri, because right now he's in violation of the zoning bylaw, as is, that within 2 months' time, he should have the residents out of there.
And Mr. Aquilina, what will happen if he does not?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Butters, then we will enforce the zoning bylaw. Mr. Veneri would then be subject to potential fines if the courts award fines to him or to the city for being in violation of the bylaw.
And my last question, I think, is would the landlord have the, we'll say, the right to ask for more time?
Through Councillor, the Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Butters, he can certainly request that to myself, but I've indicated to him, based on the fact he's been in violation for quite some time, that I'd like to have those residents out within 2 months. He can make that request. My position is that 2 months' time is enough.
Thank you. Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Dan, through you to Mr. Aquilina. The Landlord and Tenant Act says that the landlord must give them 3 months. You're saying 2. Which one has the power here? And the only reason I'm saying that is that I don't disagree with what you're saying, but we also don't want to be ourselves in jeopardy of the tenant landlord guy. So,
through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Doucette, I'm basing that on the discussion I had with Mr. Veneri. I'm not an expert in the Landlord-Tenant Act. He said he needs to give them 2 months. I'm taking his word for it.
okay. That's just one.
Okay. I just wanted to add to, I'd like to ask one question myself, Mr. Acklin. On page 21 of the report, it says the region suggests the consideration of a holding provision pending the submission and implementation of a noise impact study which assess forecast noise levels and provides recommendations to achieve sound levels for existing and future development in accordance with the MOE guidelines. How do we assure that will happen?
Deputy Mayor, the holding provision would require the need for an environmental impact study, stormwater management report, a site servicing study, a noise study, and a traffic impact study for the lands to the south of the current building to be developed. Once those are all completed, then it goes back to council for removal of the holding provision before development can even proceed. So council, if they approve the report, would apply a holding provision to that property. No lands to the south of the building can be developed until all those studies are done.
Oh, sorry, Councillor.
That's okay. Sorry about that. It came up at the last minute. All of a sudden I thought of it. With the fact that the tenants are going to be gone and then he can start his work, I'm looking at the storage that is going on that particular piece of property there. And there are what, 2, 3 boats? Fairly large boats. Are they also going to be gone as well? Since I've talked to a couple of the neighbors, and I mean, they don't know where those boats come from, and they're concerned.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Doucette, I had reported back to council that those boats on the property are currently in compliance with the zoning bylaw. They're for his own personal use, so they would be allowed to continue. But I could certainly talk to Mr. Veneri to see if they can be located, but presently they're in compliance.
Thank you. Councillors, moved by Councillor Main and seconded by Councillor Doucette. Thank you. All right. All in favor of number 1? All in favor? Hands up. Number 1. 4, and against, opposed, 2. That motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to number 2, Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Planning and Development Report number 2016-49, subject information report on the prohibition of sea shipping containers, railroad cars, truck body, trailers with wheels, file number D 14-0216.
Councillor? You? And seconder? Councillor Butters? Councillor?
Thank you very much. Through you to Dan, I guess. Dan, it says this is to be received for information and consideration, and also that council directs staff to prepare the recommendation report and appropriate zoning bylaw amendment. Can you tell me, is there public input on this? And if anybody was here tonight that wished to speak, I don't know that there is, but if somebody would, I'd be willing to ask council for leave. But Dan, how does this happen?
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Bonner, unfortunately I wasn't here to review the report. I would have had some more information on what the process would be to actually have this back to council. There is a statutory public meeting that is required before council can even consider a recommendation report. That would be advertised on our website. We would put that in the local newspaper as well because it's a citywide amendment process. The opportunity for anyone to speak for or against can be made at that public meeting.
Okay, so then it just isn't, okay, right, okay. So the report just didn't reflect that. So we'll have a public meeting, notice in the paper or whatever, on our website, I would imagine. And then from that public meeting, staff would take the thoughts of the public and work it into the report that's coming back, or at least consider the thoughts of the public.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I guess that's wasn't reflected in this, so that's what I wanted to make sure was what was going to happen. So anybody that has a concern could certainly come to the public meeting, or I would assume even contact your department ahead of time just to either clarify something that they had in mind.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Bonner, that's correct. They have an opportunity, if the people don't want to speak at the public meeting, they have an opportunity to submit written comments. Those comments, either made at this public meeting or in writing, would then be brought forward either as part of the public meeting report, depending on when we receive those, but definitely within the recommendation report for Council's consideration. And all those information, the comments, department comments, the whole kit and caboodle will be part of the recommendation report. Everything.
And Dan, would we have, I know you usually do this, but is there other communities that have gone through this and have fashioned some kind of a bylaw for this? Will we have an opportunity to look at those in your report also?
So you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Bonner, some municipalities are different on this. Some do not actually have any sort of regulations. It hasn't been brought to their attention, to planning staff, and neither has council requested certain things, but we'll definitely take a look at that. But I know certain municipalities, they allow those because they don't have the language saying they don't allow them. We have language that says we don't, as part of the 2008 amendment.
So in that report also, we're going to see whether that was a good idea when we said we weren't going to allow them? You know, I guess that'll be part of the
That'll be part of the
conversation.
report. I have my opinions, but I'll save that for the recommendation report.
Sure. All right. So I just wondered, and I don't, whether it's my position or yours, but I didn't know whether anybody was here and they totally understand it, because the way this report was, it looked like maybe this was the only kick at the can to say something. So I don't know whether there's any members of the public out there that are concerned about this. Yet there's some, so I'll leave it up to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Did you have another comment? Oh, I'll say that too. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Did you have a comment?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I think in the meantime, before this public meeting happens, and what I've noticed is like the containers are popping up, and it's to advertise to go and, I guess, procure one. We were coming back, going back out to our place yesterday, and there's another one on Clawley Street East, right in town, across from the Avondale. And you know, if you want one of these, you know, it's got like the advertisement on the side of it. It looks like they're advertising to procure them, as opposed to maybe whoever lives there got it to store stuff in. I don't know, but I'm telling you, it looks like hell. It's right out in front of the building. It's not like, you know, tucked down the side or behind or whatever. Right out in the front on Clawley Street East, and it looks another one on Highway 3, I think by the Hasty Market. Is it gone now? So I mean, are they just like, it just looks like they're dropping them off, and I don't think they should be just kind of willy-nilly doing that to advertise themselves, is my own opinion. But basically we have to wait till this gets sorted out with public meeting, etc.
Through your Deputy Mayor to Councillor Butters, all those that you're referring to are presently in violation of the zoning bylaw, just like we have some individuals that are in violation of the zoning bylaw. The same thing, we could send notice out to them to tell them that they're in violation of the zoning bylaw. Depending upon what council wants to do with this amendment, presently right now they're in violation. We could tell them you have to take them away, but we would advise them of that council is going to consider whether or not they want to relax the current regulations. So it would be the same thing that we've done with the other individuals that have been in violation. Tell them that they're presently in violation, but council is going to reconsider whether or not they're going to be prohibited any longer. or permitted.
Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Just to follow up to that, like, I think that there's a difference, at least in my mind at this point, for people that have them on their property and they use them for a specific purpose, whether it's like to store, you know, industrial parts or whatever, as opposed to whatever company that owns this business who puts them to advertise themselves. I mean, we have signs that have to do with the size of bylaws that governs, like, you know, signage, for example. And to me, this is like one honking big sign on Clawley Street East. Like, seriously, I don't think that, to me, I object to. The individual part of it, I think we can, you know, it's on their private property. They're using them for whatever purpose they are, and I don't have as much problem with that in terms of waiting for the public meeting process to unfold. But the advertisement part of it, that concerns me, because where else are they going to dump them off?
If I may, Deputy Mayor, that sounds twofold. We have a signed bylaw that no one can have third-party advertising. That sounds like what's going on. So we could look at that right ASAP, and if that's what they're doing, if that's the intent, then we could tell them that you got to take those out. It's something that we're not considering as part of the sea container report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. I think Councillor Main, did you have a comment?
I'm going to say the same thing, the signed bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Council, I've checked with our clerk, and because there are public meetings in this regard, we'd have to waive procedural bylaw to allow them to comment today. Or, as it is, just it's the recommendation says that council directs staff to prepare their recommendation report and appropriate zoning bylaw amended. So it's just here for consideration. If you want to let members of the public speak, we have to waive procedural bylaw first. Councillor Bowden.
Thank you very much. I've got mixed emotion to this, because the way this read, people, I think, thought they had to come tonight and speak. So I'm in favor of that. But because there's a public meeting, I don't want to go through a whole, 20-minute talk that you're going to say the same thing at the public meeting. So I'd be willing to request that they speak on a very limited basis, knowing they're going to get another kick at the can at the public meeting. But
the clerk says not. I'll let the clerk read down
sure.
again.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The reason for this provision under the procedural bylaw is so that members of the public wishing to make comment concerning a subject matter that's going to be considered at a future public meeting is so that their comments form part of the public record for the statutory process under the Planning Act. Right now, anything that would be said would be on record in terms of council minutes, but should really be recorded with regard to the process, the legal process under the Planning Act. So that's really the reason why that rule is there.
Councillor Bodnar?
I'm fine with that, and as long as they understand they should come back at the public meeting and say something. I asked for council's leave so that they could at least have a short, maybe they got a couple questions on process or something, but I would ask that they be allowed to speak within their time limit tonight.
So are you making a motion first?
A motion.
To waive procedural bylaw?
Yes. Yes, I am.
So I would need someone to second that. Councillor Bart, all in favor? Hands up over there on the left. 3, 2. Any opposed? None opposed? Okay. You could let. Is that all we need? That's carried. No opposed. So now can come to the podium. Anyone wishing to speak can now come to the podium. Jack?
I'm sorry, I came here tonight because I was misunderstanding what I read.
You have to come to the podium, Jack. Okay, thank you. Please state your name. I know who you are, but a lot might not know who you are. Just push the red button. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, members of council, I came here tonight to speak on number 1, but I didn't get a chance. You passed it before I got a chance to question on it. I understood from what it said in the paper that there's supposed to be some type of a public meeting tonight on number 1. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Yes, you're wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry. My concern, maybe I could bring it up. You passed it, that's fine. That is, my concern is to the planner.
Sorry, Jack, you have to speak to the issue that we have pulled forward, waiving procedural bylaw. That one has already passed.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm very disappointed.
Sorry.
because You're getting yourself into a big mess. I'm not done with it.
And the speakers to the sea containers. If you'd come to the podium, please. The 2 people that had their hands up earlier, we waived procedural bylaw.
Mr. Bye, we can't talk to you. My name's Carol Brady, and I was just going to say that I'm fine waiting for the public meeting to address some of the issues. There is a difference here with some other communities, though, in the size of properties, in the size of residential properties. I have one that is fairly large. It's over an acre. And it's not the same thing as having a 35-foot lot with a shipping container in the front yard. Mine is more than 150 feet from the street. And passers-by, it's not even that visible. So, but I'm perfectly fine waiting for the public meeting. I just wanted to make sure that that was what was going to happen.
Carol, your last.
Brady? Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, Council, I actually agree. We can wait until the meeting that comes up. We also have a larger property, and we do have a CCAN on our property. The reason is storage, and it's environmentally friendly, actually. But we do have a little list of stuff that we would like to write up and send in so that you could have each point that we have to say. So, thank you.
Tell your name, full name.
Sorry. My
And
name is
address.
Deb Britton.
Address.
And it's Dan Kutcher. I'm speaking on behalf of Dan Kutcher, and we're at 925 Kalali Street East.
Thank you. Councilor Bodger, you have the floor again. Item 3. You do.
Item 3, Community and Corporate Services, Community Services Division Report Number 2016-44, subject, Friends of Roselawn Center requests for a facility fee waiver.
Councilor Bodger.
Thank you. I bring this up. I'm in full support of this. I think it's a great venture, and I just wanted the press to pick up on this, and hopefully council's fully supportive. I have a question through you, Acting Mayor, to Harry, I guess. Harry, it says in support of the, want to drop the fees, but also there's talk about sponsoring the food. Can you give us a little background on what this is, what they're doing at Roselawn, and maybe just on that food thing? Thanks.
The Friends of Roselawn Center, through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Bodner, are sponsoring an event that is basically an art auction presentation that they're putting together. In fact, they're meeting tonight to discuss it further. Their request to waive the fee is really, obviously I pointed out, a very insignificant amount, but still a value to us from a revenue standpoint. Regardless, the food aspect of it was requested, but we feel that if we go into that venture with them, it's an unknown. And food costs, because of the way they are, really, from my position and from our position really as staff, we don't support, you know, sponsoring food, but we do encourage them to factor it into their budgetary costs. So it's just something that they want to present as a part of the social aspect. We have no idea what their associated cost for food would be. So for us to even speculate would be, wouldn't be prudent on our part to put council or anybody in that position. So it's only fair that they look after those costs, factor it into their operating costs or whatever that may be. And they may even have sponsors we don't even know. But we're certainly willing to waive the facility fee in return of a good investment that hopefully, if this event goes well, will help them and at the same time help the Roselawn Center.
Because I think I'm in full agreement of that part of it. I think the facility fees, absolutely waive them, and the food, you know, maybe they can pick up some sponsors for that, or and that great unknown, I don't think we should be diving into wholeheartedly. So, you know, it's a great group of volunteers that are doing some really good work. And by the way, as council knows, the money is going to be coming back into the Roselawn Center, so it isn't, you know, it's going to support us. So the artists that they're having, these are local artists, I understand, that are going to have their works there.
Through your Deputy Mayor Kennedy to Councillor Bodnar, yes, they are.
Okay, we had a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Any opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Next item pulled for consideration is item 15, Councillor Main.
It's a memorandum from Janice Payton, Executive Assistant to the Director of Engineering and Operations, on behalf of the Environmental Advisory Committee. Motion regarding the 2016 Traffic Operations Study.
Moved by so discussion, Councillor. Seconder first, yes. That, and now discussion, Councillor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess my question would be to Mr. Hansen. Do we really need a study? Is it that important to have a study to keep traffic moving in a town of 18,000 people? Is it required by law that we do a study before we put in a crosswalk, like we were talking about here across at the Shoppers? I just need some clarification on this.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Main, I asked for some clarification when I saw this recommendation from the committee. To me, it's not clear exactly what the goal is. We only have 4 sets of signals in this city. There is continuous traffic flow based on the traffic timing. The traffic timing is based on the volumes of traffic that we experience on Clarence Street, King Street, and the intersecting streets here. The overriding factor in Port Colborne with traffic signals is the operation of the bridges. What we've experienced in the past is it's very difficult to have any sort of synchronization and timing that makes sense in Port Colborne, because every time the bridge goes up, that throws all the signals into a different mode, and it reroutes all the traffic flow within the city. So it's extremely difficult to coordinate in any sense. The region owns all the traffic signals on Mellenby, Killallie, and Main Street, and Welland Street, up to the middle bridge. And it's always a constant balancing act in terms of timing those signals with the operation of the bridges themselves. We even have the warning signs on both sides of Main Street and also at Killallie and Welland to try to assist with that operation. So in reading this, I'm not sure what we can achieve. We certainly, with the traffic operations study, I wouldn't want to spend a whole lot of money of our limited resource on the study to look at our 4 sets of signals. We certainly wouldn't look at any of the signals on the regional roads within our study. So My thought is that we'd contact Mr. Olenga and the committee, try to get some clarification on their goals here and move forward with that.
John, just one more to add to that. Do we really need a stop signal at that street? Are we allowed to put crosswalks in, that are marked crosswalks for people, or is that beyond the realm of the local driver to understand what a crosswalk is?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. An unprotected crosswalk, we would recommend strongly against that. Simply painting a crosswalk on the road does not give the pedestrians the right of way. The vehicles still have the right of way. Unless there's a control through a set of traffic signals or pedestrian signals, as Council has approved for Main Street East at Wellington Street, you then have the necessary protection to stop traffic, stop the vehicles and give the pedestrians some sense of safety in them. Other than that, an unprotected pedestrian crossing is not recommended. It's highly unsafe.
Thank you very much, Ron. Appreciate it.
Although I didn't attend, through you, Madam Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor, to Ron, I didn't attend this particular meeting for obvious reasons. I believe one of the things they're trying to control is the amount of idling that's going on, and they're trying to find a way for the idling to stop because it creates pollution. And that's why the Environmental Committee would have gotten into this. That's the only thing they're trying to do. Now, can we accomplish it? I wasn't at the meeting, so I'm not sure what the thoughts were, but they at least hope that somehow it might be looked at, and if we can, let's do it. I believe that's the way they're thinking. And I don't know. Barb, were you there at that particular one?
No, I was not.
No, okay. So it's in their defense. I know that they've been talking for quite a while about this idling idea, especially around the bridges. And the idling, if the car's still running and it's just sitting there and sitting there and sitting there, that's your pollution problem. Okay, and that's what they're trying to. That's what they're trying. What they're trying to get at with this. They're not sure if anybody can accomplish it, but they hope so. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Sett. Councillor Bodnar, you had a comment?
Yes, through you, Acting Mayor, to Ron, I guess. After hearing your concerns about doing what they're asking for, detailed look at every light-controlled T intersection, if we pass this tonight as it sits, is that going to cause you any concern? Because we're giving you direction. Would it be? Do we need to tweak this a little bit? Have you go back to the committee or something?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I need clarification on this. I wouldn't recommend approving this without some better clarification on what the committee is looking for. If it's, as Councillor Doucette has said, if it's a decrease in emissions, the emissions are idling at the bridges. The bridges, it's not directly related to the traffic signals themselves. And I think at one time there was an anti-idling bylaw passed in the city that there are signs in place and so on. If the traffic signals are timed correctly, and we hope they are, and it's somewhat of a function of the pedestrian controls on the signals themselves. If those are timed correctly, the traffic flow should be such that emissions and idling are kept to a minimum. So if they sense that there's a vehicle at the traffic lights, there's not vehicles coming in the other direction, the signal loop will change and they will continue through. So if anything, the signal should be, if timed correctly, should really reduce the amount of idling and emissions. I suspect the concern is, and in doing some research with us today and asking some questions about it, I think the concern was raised because Bridge 19 was out of service for so long, and there were vehicles actually waiting at Bridge 19. The signals were working, and there was no traffic movement at the time. But that's a temporary condition, and it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to study a temporary condition that may not occur again. So I think just get it's a matter of getting clarification now on the intent. We can certainly give the committee some recommendations or considerations on what the concerns are.
Thank you. So that was my concern. If we turn this down, I just don't want the environmental committee to say, well, what the heck are you guys doing? So if we turned it down with a recommendation that Mr. Hansen, yeah, could, Councilor Doucette was saying we could defer it for clarification to come back at another meeting, but maybe the clerk has some fancy wording that we could.
No, the clerk just thought that we could refer it back to the committee for comments, more comments. Did you have something you wanted to say tonight, Councillor Elliott?
Yeah, for clarification, it says at every light-controlled T intersection. Now, I'm assuming a T intersection is King and Main. Not every single intersection with a controlled light, right? Right? So King and Main would be a T intersection, right? Where you T into it and that's it. And I'm trying to think of another one in town. Where's another T intersection?
When you come on a one-way street, you're not going two ways on Castle Street. So that makes that a T.
But it's a light, but a light control.
Light control.
Mellenby would be another one, but it's not.
Those aren't ours.
They're not ours. And Mellenby, when you come over the bridge and you're heading west over the bridge, it's an automatic right-hand turn anyways. So it's a continuous turn, right? So you don't.
Unless you stop at the light to turn left.
But you can't continuous turn that because the cross traffic has to have the green light. You're talking about right turn continuous turns is what it is in T intersections. So the only two T intersections we have aren't even ours. So basically to say it on T intersections, it's a moot point because we don't control the two sets of lights that are at those two intersections. Because I don't think there's another T intersection in town with stoplights other than those two. I'm thinking, and if somebody knows of one, there isn't one.
Perhaps so Clarence and Welland, if I could interject.
Clarence and Welland.
Technically, Clarence and one, just on the other side of the bridge.
But you got continuous turn, right? Going, well, when you go over the bridge, it's continuous turn to the right.
Left turn, no. It's not continuous.
But when you come the other way, you've only got the option of turning left or right, so you can turn right. Right? Because you can only continuous turn at a T intersection on right turns.
Right.
So basically, the three T intersections, if you can include that one, have the ability to turn right anyways. So I mean, the question's basically answered. You can do it at all of them. There's only three of them. And you'd have to approach the region, and I'll bet you they won't incur the cost of installing that. That's just, so I'm trying to figure out, because that's what the request is, right? Just at T intersections.
Correct.
Thank you. Well, councillors, is it your desire to refer this back to the committee for more clarification of what they're actually looking for? Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I would say that because Angie did second this, if we just wait till she's here, I'm sure she would be able to help us out with this. So in 2 weeks, just bring it back to us, and then hopefully Angie will be here maybe, and would that work?
So the choice is either refer it back to committee or defer it for 2 weeks. That's your
I'd say
choice.
just defer it for 2 weeks, and then Angie should be able to answer because she was there.
Okay. And perhaps in the meantime too, Mr. Hansen, you can get some more clarification from individuals, because I also thought that they were concerned now that Shoppers has moved to the corner, that there were a lot of people concerned about that crosswalk, and I thought that was going to be included in this study. What it is? But that's not a signal. No, but in the traffic study, that's going to be included. Thank you. So the motion from Councillor Butters is to defer this for 2 weeks, and Councillor Doucette will second that. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that would carry. Thank you. And the last item pulled for this evening is item 20, Councillor Main.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Email correspondence from Nathan Gelka on behalf of Beverly Gelka, dated March the 22nd, 2016. Request for poison oak to be added to the list of noxious weeds. Now,
Moved by Councillor Main, seconded by Councillor Bodnar. Thank you. Councillor Main.
thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was just wondering, and I don't know who's in charge of poison oak, but it's got to be bylaw, so I guess it'd be through Dan. Can we just make an amendment just to add poison oak to the current bylaw?
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Main, we need to amend the bylaw.
Oh, the whole bylaw?
The whole bylaw to include poison oak as part of a noxious weed. So it needs to come through a full report for council to give approval to amend the bylaw. I have no objection to adding that to the list. It's very similar to poison ivy, which is a noxious weed, but for some reason, noxious weeds do not include poison oak under the provincial legislation.
Thanks, Dan.
My only comment, I guess, is in the interim, can we just add that to our list? And then we're going to make the whole amending bylaw? It's just that, how long is it going to take us to get an amending bylaw to this?
I talked to the bylaw enforcement supervisor, and she's going to get the report to council at the first council meeting in April.
Excellent. Well, that sounds good. Okay. So the motion was to defer this till April, what's that, April the 11th. Right? Is that right? April, next scheduled meeting, the clerk is telling me, is April the 11th. So we're going to do that. All in favor? Any opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Any notices of motion? No notices of motion. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Danch, and seconded by Councillor Elliott. Thank you. All right, councillors, we're now going to move on to the regular meeting of council. And so I'll just call the meeting to order. Introduction of addendum items, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. None this evening.
Thank you. Confirmation of agenda. Councillor Bodnar, Councillor Doucette. Any disclosures of interest? Seeing none. We need a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes regular meeting of council held on March the 14th. Councillor Butters, Councillor Danch, thank you. Items D requiring separate discussion? None? Yep. Councillor?
Oh, thank you very much. Item number 14.
Thank you. Any others? Thank you. Then approval of the items not requiring separate discussion. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Elliott, thank you. Councillor Doucette, thank you. Consideration of items requiring separate discussion, and that would be you, Councillor, with number 14. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. Richard Ribiak, Chair of the Niagara Central Airport Commission, request for matching funds from the region of Niagara, Canada 150 Community Infrastructure Program application.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Main. Thank you. And Councillor Butters.
Thank you. When you read the, it says that the request from Richard Ribiak, Chair of the Niagara Central Airport Commission, requesting the region of Niagara to commit matching funds up to a maximum of $99,000 in support of the Niagara Central Airport Commission's application for funding under the Canada 150 Community Infrastructure Program to benefit the Niagara Central Dorothy Rungling Airport. And it doesn't say like to support or to file it, but I'm going to be asking that we put in those words to that a letter come from us supporting this action. The Niagara Central Airport was successful in a grant application for up to $99,000 to do the work on the roof, and we need the matching funding. We expect that funding to come from the region of Niagara to pony up that other half of money. So I think with all the municipalities, which is Port Colborne, Welland, Wainfleet, and Pelham, our respective mayors and acting mayors and regional councillors going to bat for us at the airport, we should be able to expect the region to pony up that share. Several years ago, the Niagara District Airport, which is St. Catharines' end of the world, received upwards of almost $4 to $5 million, and that was a matching grant thing through, and they got monies from the feds in the province. The region of Niagara ponied up $4-point-something million for that airport to do the work that they deem necessary. So up to $99,000 is a drop in the proverbial bucket. So I think it's important that this council supports that and sends a letter forthwith.
Thank you, Councillor. I totally agree. So we'll send that off to the region to tell them that this council is in full support of them ponying up, as you say. Ponying up. Okay, all in favor? Wait, okay, sorry. Councillor.
With the letter, and stress what Barb said, that they already received the funding, like they're just waiting for it to get the matching funds. So
I believe I received a letter from the manager, and I think we have till April 2017 to spend that. So if we don't get it in that window.
But the thing of it is,
yeah,
the roof can't wait till 2017. The roof's got to be done,
Okay. Councillor, the clerk would like to add something.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I apologize to Council. It was staff's intention to bring this forward for support. Somehow that language did not get captured in the agenda, so I just wanted to make that.
Oh, great. Thank you. So all in favor? Carried unanimously. I'd like to make all the proclamations in one fell sweep if I could. Proclamations: National Health and Fitness Day, first Saturday in June. Public Rail Safety Week, April 25th to May the 1st. Parachute Safe Kids Week, May 30th to June the 5th. And World Autism Awareness Day, April the 2nd. All in favor? A mover, I guess, first. Mover, Councillor Butters, seconded by Councillor Doucette. All in favor? Any opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. And I believe we're doing that in front of City Hall that day. Is that not right, Madam Clerk? I think we're raising the flag that day, right? Yeah. So come out and raise the flag and celebrate that week. Now I have minutes of the boards and commissions, and once again I'm going to read them all off in bulk. Minutes of the Board of Management of the Port Colborne Historical and Marine Museum meeting of January the 19th, 2016. Minutes of the East Village Neighborhood Improvement Task Force meeting of January 25th and February the 8th, 2016. Minutes of the Port Colborne Downtown Improvement Area meeting of April the 8th, 2015, May 13th, 2015, June the 10th, 2015, July 8th, 2015, September 9th, 2015, November the 9th, 2015, and March the 6th, 2015. Boy, somebody just got caught up on their work, right? Anyway, and then also minutes of the Canal Days Advisory Committee meeting of January the 20th, 2016, and February the 17th, 2016. Mover and a seconder. Mover, Councillor Main. Seconder, Councillor Danch. Thank you. Madam Clerk, consideration of bylaws.
Thank you. That the following bylaws be enacted and passed. Bylaw 63442416 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1150971 is amended, respecting lands legally known as part of Lot 30, Concession 2, part of Part 2 under Reference Plan 59R 12145, municipally known as 485 Northland Avenue. Bylaw 63452516 being a bylaw to adopt the estimates for the City of Port Colborne for its own operations for the year 2016. Bylaw 63462616 being a bylaw to appoint a member to the Economic Development Advisory Committee. Bylaw 63472716 being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with Brendan Paving Limited regarding tender 2015-18 Helen Street Road closure. Bylaw 63482816 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 89-2000 being a bylaw regulating traffic and parking on city roads, that being Steel Street. And finally, bylaw 63492916 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its meeting of March 29, 2016.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mover? Councillor Butters. Seconder, Councillor Main. All in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Danch and Councillor Elliott. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Yeah, I know.